Hi again. So, following on from the previous comparative bar charts that we were doing, where we were looking at two different time periods of a population within England, we're now progressing that onto something called population pyramids. And again, this is very similar to your bar chart. If you notice, what we've actually got on here is we've got the data sets are actually in the middle, all right, and the bar charts are horizontal this time rather than vertical. And again, the axes are very, very clear. We have got the United Kingdom in 2016 as our data range. What this is showing is how many people fall into these age brackets as a percentage, as a proportion of the population in millions. So it's got in millions here. Sometimes they show it as percentages, but in this instance, it's in millions. So please make sure you don't confuse the two. The second thing that population pyramids really make clear is the proportion of the population that are female and the proportion of the population which are actually male. And there is a reason for this, is because what we can actually do with that is we can start to look at where a population might be male heavy and where a population may be female heavy. So an instance in here is that we can look at the bottom here, so we can look at the male under the age of 14. We can look at that and say this is 1.8, 1.9, so it's nearly 2 million boys within the population and probably about 1.9 million girls. So we know that we've had a birth rate of boys as 100,000 boys greater under the age of 14 within the country. And you'll notice that the population pyramid starts to work its way up. It's not really uniform in its pattern at all. It does show lower birth rates here, increased birth rates there. I fall within this bracket here, so we can tell that in the 40 to 44 year bracket, we've got roughly say 2.2 million ladies, and we're looking at around about 2.2 million men as well. So they're relatively similar. And that stays the same until you get to the older age groups above 65. And if you look at 70 to 74 plus, if you start to compare the female population to the males, you'll see that there are far greater number, not far greater, I suppose, but there are greater numbers of women further up the age groups than there are of the male population here. Right, so what they're used for? Well, they're basically used to compare male and female populations within a country. They're essential for planning because obviously if you know that you've got a birth rate that's dropping down the bottom here, so you know from 20 to 24 and all the way down to 0 to 14, you can see the population is in decline like it was here. What it means is the government may want to spend less money on education, and in fact since I started at Redbridge School, two of the schools in the local area were shut down because there just wasn't enough children to go to it. So they took the money, they reinvested it in other areas, and perhaps what they find is as this population gets older, they may need to put it into healthcare instead and provide more doctors, nurses and hospital space because they're going to need it. How do we know that they're going to need that healthcare in the future? Well, because it's the UK, because we are, as you know, an HIC or a rich country, we have a very long life expectancy of 90 to 94, 95 to 99 and 100. The normal life expectancy for the UK is roughly around about here for women and about here for men. Men typically do not live as long as the ladies do. Various reasons for that. Could be that men typically take on more hazardous jobs, although women do join the army and the police and the fire service. Typically these are jobs which are predominantly taken by men, and therefore they are more at risk. Ladies' bodies biologically age slower, so therefore they live longer than the men do. So that is effectively what it is for. It's to allow us to structure the population. It's allowing us to work out where support may be needed in the future, and it tells us the story about the country. I know that this is an HIC because of this life expectancy in here. I know that healthcare must be good in this country and food must be accessible because the people are living longer. The last thing to point out is this bracket here. So we're looking at sort of 65 to 69 all the way down here to that bracket there. I'm going to do the same on this side here down to here. And what this is economically Well, it doesn't work too well on the red, does it? Active. That means that these people are working. They are paying tax. They're effectively contributing to people's pensions up here. Now, these people are what you would call dependent, and they are elderly dependent. And these people down here, in here, and in here, these are also dependent. They're at school, they don't pay tax, they live at home, they might be at university. So these are your young dependents. Now, if you know in your population that you have got a growing elderly dependent population, such as Japan, but its economically active population is in decline, and that means it's going down, you know that you're going to need to find money somewhere in the future. Now, typically in an exam, you'll be asked one of two questions. How do we know that this is a population pyramid for an HIC? And you'll be asked potentially to do some calculations. So I'm just going to ask you to pause the video when I say pause and answer the three questions here. Okay, you can pause the video now. Right, okay, so time for some answers then. So what we are looking at here is, what are they actually used for? Well, they are used to obviously, whoops, just get rid of that. So they're used to analyse population change, population growth and change, and obviously they allow you to plan for the future. Okay, that's the key thing. Population pyramids allow you to plan for the future. So how do we know that this is an HIC? Okay, so obviously HIC means that we are typically very rich, and within a rich country, the typical things that you'll find in HIC are good education, good healthcare, easy access to food, clean water, all sorts of things like that. So what does that mean for the population pyramid? Well, you're going to end up with a high life expectancy. And obviously it's quite expensive to live in these countries, so you might find a low birth rate. Okay, and the last thing you've got is a large economically active area, as in this here. So we're looking around here, around about this is our economically active zone in there, and that forms the majority of the population, which is good, which means that we've got tax coming in and the government is well funded. If you're to look at one of the poorer countries, as we'll show you later on, you'll find that there are some very, very different facts around about that. Okay, so just going to try and get rid of that. So the last three questions in 2016, roughly 60 to 69. Now you need to be careful. I've done this on purpose because this actually spans two of the age brackets for females only. So what we've actually got here are, we've got round about, oops, I'll do it again. Oops. Just to return to this, then, as I was saying, we've got two age groups in here. So the age group you're looking for is here. And the first age group is 2.1. And the second age group that we're looking at is here, is actually 1.7. So you add those two together, you add 1.7 and 2.1, and you end up with 3.8 million. Okay, now the male population 2024 is only here, so that's quite an easy one to read. It's just a fraction over the line, but the exam board would let you get away with that. They give you some leeway. That's about 1.8 million people there, so it's nice and easy. And then the total 50 to 54 population. So you need to find the 50 to 54, which is this one here and this one here. And if we look at the men first of all, then we're really looking at around about 2.5 million, and we're going to add that to roughly 2.3. Just put my 2.3 million in there. So obviously that works out as 4.8 million people. Okay, give yourself a mark there. So what we'll do is you basically get 2 marks for that one. If you think you've got that right, you get 1 mark really for that one there, because it only wants one answer. Female population, I think this one would, not there. I reckon this one would be worth 2 because it's a tricky equation. This one would be worth 1 mark. And the bottom one, again, would be worth 2 marks. It's all to do with the amount of work that you need to do. All right.